Good evening, this is Denise Peterson-Rafuse with Denise on the Cove. This evening, we are going to be talking with Melanie Maroney and David Wimberly, both board members with Transition Bay. And as we know, Transition Bay puts on many unique events and activities that we can learn a lot. And this one coming up on May 20th is amazing. It's called Eat Your Yard. It will be on, as I mentioned, May the 20th, which is a Saturday, and it starts at 1 o'clock until sunset. We do have to say at the start of the show that it is sold out, that there was so much excitement, but we wanted people to know about it because they're looking at offering future Eat Your Yards because of the enthusiasm and the number of people that signed up. So I'd like to say welcome, Melanie, and welcome, David.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and it's a pleasure for me to have both of you here so we can talk about a very unique activity that you're offering for the first time through Transition Bay, and it is called, as I said, Eat Your Garden, or Eat Your Yard. That's right, not Eat Your Garden. That might be the second one follow up, right? So we're going to start with the fact that Melanie has been the kind person to offer up her yard for this activity.
Yeah, we're very excited. So we live in Upper Tantallon. So initially it came up at one of our steering group meetings with Transition Bay. We were talking about programs, what should we do? Of course, and I'm always talking about how I'd love to get my family more into gardening. And then Transition Bay, David and Bob were saying, hey, we want to do some permaculture things and let's do it at your house. So, okay.
So that's how you got involved?
That's pretty much great. How we decided to do that, yeah.
That was an easy one.
It was an easy, yeah, I think everybody was immediately very excited about the idea, and we started talking about, well, how can we make this a really great community experience? So we have a local permaculture expert, Jen Stollard, doing a presentation for us at the library at Tantallon, and she's also been working on the plan, been out to our house several times now, and working on a plan for how we can basically make the entire landscape of our yard into edible landscaping using permaculture principles. So we're taking up all the different things in the yard and passing the plants on to neighbors. Of course, we don't want to throw away any useful goodies that other people might want to grow. So we've been taking those things out and making room, adding new beds, planning out different areas. And we have a super long list of edibles that are going to be put into our yard. It's really exciting about the plan, not only what that's going to look like right now, but in the long term of what it's going to look like years to come as things start taking root in our yard.
And you're probably going to be like the first yard in Chester St. Margaret's that is all edible. That's what's so neat about it. Do you think?
David, do you know of anybody else that has an entirely edible yard? I'm sure lots of people here grow food, but I don't know if anybody's done.
I don't know of anyone else right here that has gone all the way.
So that's intriguing.
But it used to be that's what people did.
Right.
Every inch of especially the close areas were planned out so that you were planting edibles for the farmer wife to get even a few flowers. It was considered something a lot of conversation to sacrifice a place where you might get some food. And this gives people who've done this, though, incredible food security and independence, resilience, and it saves an incredible amount of money as well and makes people more healthy in a number of ways. The food quality is immeasurably better than the old.
Yeah, because you're growing it yourself.
Right, yeah.
And can you give us a little bit of a definition of the permaculture? I'm not sure what that means and what it is.
Permaculture is a way of designing yards and farms and our world so that we follow ecological design principles. That's a term. Basically, we're trying to set things up so that it's an ecology, but it's an ecology that it's extra productive so that we plant them. So first, plants feed each other. So once it's mature and going, you don't need to have anything more to it.
So what do you mean by feeding each other?
You don't need to add any more fertilizer. You don't need to add anything extra to it. Not even compost.
And how would they feed each other if they're at, is it the design of how they're planted and where they're planted?
Well, yes, it's planting them in such a way so that everything is in gills, which is a term for a little mini ecology. So around a walnut tree, you'll have certain plants that like to be next to a walnut tree, and some of them are giving extra food underneath, but some are just there because they create the right place for microbiological activity to happen underneath the walnut tree so that the walnut is fed. And some of it is so that you attract the right kinds of insects so that there's no space for the harmful insects there. You have good insects there that are preserving ecology. You're making a little ecology.
So you shouldn't have to spray anything with the garden at all?
Well, that's the idea. You're avoiding as much of that as you possibly can. And the second thing is so it feeds nature so that the birds and the animals around and everything is being fed. And so you're taking care of carbon sequestration, for instance. You're absorbing carbon and putting it back in instead of destroying our world by emitting carbon. And the third thing is then there's an excess for people. And it turns out when you do that, you have to do less work to feed yourself than if you didn't do that. So it takes a bit of wisdom to do that, but once you've done it, you are learning how to live in harmony, and it's a model for how we can design our communities. And the transition movement arose out of the idea, well, how can we take the idea of making a permaculture planting into creating a community that's like a permaculture garden, that it feeds itself, it feeds nature, and then it feeds the humans as well. As reverse of what we normally do in conventional economics is like, let's just take everything we possibly can and have this just short-term party with it all and leave a barren wasteland of asphalt and gravel and clear cuts. So,
and I believe that people are starting to see that, David, and the importance that we have to make that change. And that's what's so good about Transition Bay, because you're educating people. So, Melanie, do you know what will be planted in your yard?
I know some. I'm still waiting for the final plant list, but Jen actually sent me the other day. We have a list 3 pages long
really?
of the plants that are going in.
You wouldn't think that there would be that many, and I guess that's part of the learning experience for all those lucky people that have signed up for this, where it's basically, I can't say sold out because you don't even charge for all this new information, and I mean, it's great, but you're filled up your class for this May 20th, this Saturday, when this activity takes place, and I understand that the first part is at 1 o'clock, and it's like a little school to teach people and give them some knowledge, and then after that, it's a trip to your yard. Can you tell us some of the plants that you know will be planted?
Yeah, we're going to be, actually, the one that surprised me quite a bit, you talk about, we don't even know that we could grow these things here, is hazelnuts.
Yeah.
And I had no clue that we could grow hazelnuts in Nova Scotia.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, and we're actually planting, I'm not entirely sure exactly how many, but we're going to plant something like 8 hazel trees in our property.
Oh my goodness, do they get big? Are they a big tree?
It depends. You can have dwarf varieties or partial, and then you can also have full size. So we're kind of doing a combo, actually. We're doing some hazelnuts as part of a hedge. We had some rose bushes for anybody who grows, these roses. They're lovely, but they can try to take over your entire yard, and they grow like weeds. So we had some roses kind of in the hedge in front of the house, and we've taken those out, and we're going to grow a new hedge there. Exactly.
Yes. And how big is your yard? Do you know offhand?
We have, our whole property is actually only a little under 1.5 acres, 1.25 acres, and part of that is wooded. So we do not have, it's not a huge property. I mean, we have a nice size yard, but it's also a little bit different. It's not, just here's a big back lawn. It's a little unique in how it's laid out, which means, we have some sunny areas, some shaded areas. We have kind of a little area that almost feels like it's in front of the neighbor's house, but we have great neighbors, and we're working with that process. So we're doing things in lots of different spaces, which I think also is going to be really valuable for people to see, even if you don't have a half an acre, even if you only have this little space, what can I do with this area? What can I do with that? We're even reclaiming some of our driveway to put in raised bed gardens right outside the side of our door.
So you had said about the hazelnuts.
Yeah, and we have.
What other ones do you have?
We're going to be putting in Saskatoon berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. My kids say basically all the berries. My kids are very excited.
That's awesome.
We're doing
so those
currants.
will be also what you're putting in would be able to feed you at different times during the summer months?
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to do chestnuts and walnuts as well. Walnuts are another one that I hadn't really thought of growing here, but we're doing, and of course the chestnuts and walnuts will take a few years.
Yes, I was going to say
plan.
that it's obviously long term, but would you have some items this summer that is going to be, you'll be able to eat? That
Absolutely. we're putting in, we're doing raised beds, of course, which...
so you have traditional plants that we all recognize.
Yeah, we're doing those. But then we're also putting in, in things like rhubarb and some berry plants. We'll be doing a lot of herbs at different places in the property, and that'll all be harvested this year. We'll have things like that we can grow. So we'll put in, there'll be mint that's growing around. One of the things I said
You'll have
to
lots
Jen,
of cats.
Yeah.
Right? all the cats in the neighborhood will be at your place. Yeah, plant
with all the
mint.
pretty
They love the
things.
smell of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and I said to Jen, one of the things and she asked us, of course, well, what's important to you and what do you eat? What do you like to eat? What's your family going to eat? And one of the things I said is, well, I'm really looking forward to going out in my yard in the morning and picking my cup of tea. So we're putting in a lot of different...
I like that.
Yeah. So there's mint. There's going to be some sage. There's, things like that we can grow. Chamomile we're growing. We're going to be putting in some elder trees because, of course, elderberry syrup is fabulous and it's a wonderful for cold season. So we're doing a lot of things that are medicinals as well. And we'll be talking a bit about some of these plants at the program. And we're going to put together some different handouts. And for anybody who's on the Transition Bay email list, and you can email info@transitionbay.ca to make sure that we get your name for that. If you're on the list, we'll do a follow-up as well with some information for people who want to continue their learning past it. And I want to note, too, that this will be the first year that my family's done any gardening. So
you're newbies
I'm
at that,
new.
too.
Yeah,
so.
we're coming to this from the perspective of people who are really into this from an environmental standpoint, from a community standpoint, from a sustainability standpoint. And, of course, everybody knows, I have 4 kids. Our grocery bill is more than twice the amount of our mortgage, right? It's by far our most expensive.
When I go to the grocery store, I wonder about young families and seniors when I see the prices of vegetables and fruits and basically anything, but told to eat healthy, and then the prices are just overwhelming. Yeah. So this is a fabulous experience also in that regard for your family, and it'll be able to tell people that you don't have to have the experience. I think that's the good part, where you're coming in here fresh and new at this, that people will understand and realize that you don't have to have all this knowledge and experience, and you'll have an organization like Transition Bay that's going to support people from now on and in the future to be able to have their own yards made into eating their own yard.
Yeah, and hopefully too, our yard, because we're very community minded, my family and also Transition Bay, one of the things that we're hoping is that as we convert the yard, we're also becoming a resource, not just for people who want to come and learn about permaculture and edibles, but also a resource for plants, so that as things grow, and we can take clippings and share that in the community if people want to grow those things themselves.
That'll be really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, so we're really wanting to be a resource in as many ways as we can and to spread that. And I'm hoping that a lot of people come to the program and say, hey, how can I plant more edibles in my yard? And that this year, when they decide what they're going to plant, instead of just going over and buying some pretty flowers from the planting from the store, they decide maybe I'll buy something pretty that I can actually eat instead.
I think that is so interesting and encouraging. I think that you guys are just doing a marvelous job to bring something in new like this, and we can tell from how fast the class got filled up that there's a great interest. So we're going to take just a little break now, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk more with Melanie and David about Eat Your Yard and other things that Transition Bay are doing with respect to gardening. There is a interesting and a fun class coming up, and that will help people in the community, because it would be for the food bank. And what's better than that is to be able to bring people together and to be able to share your resources with people that need that. And that's what the community's all about. So we're going to take a short break and be back in a minute.